I will be doing a passage reading from the Nobel Peace Prize winner Elie Wiesel's memoir Night. This memoir deals with many themes. One of the major themes of this novel is religion and Eliezer, the main character's relationship with the Jewish religion. Both passages that I will read today deal with this theme. The first passage comes from the beginning of the novel, pages 4 to 5. In this passage, Moshe the Beetle has become the reluctant teacher of Eliezer on his journey to discover the phenomenon of Jewish mysticism. He wanted to drive the idea of studying Kabbalah from my mind. In vain, I succeeded on my own in finding a master for myself in the person of Moshe the Beetle. He had watched me one day as I prayed at dusk. "Why do you cry when you pray?" he asked, as though he knew me well. "I don't know," I answered, troubled. I had never asked myself that question. I cried because something inside me felt the need to cry. That was all I knew. "Why do you pray?" he asked after a moment. Why did I pray? Strange question. Why did I live? Why did I breathe? "I don't know," I told him, even more troubled and ill at ease. I don't know. From that day on, I saw him often. He explained to me, with great emphasis, that every question possessed a power that was lost in the answer. Man comes closer to God through the question he asks him. He liked to say, "Therein lies true dialogue." Man asks and God replies, but we don't understand his replies. We cannot understand them, because they dwell in the depths of our souls and remain there until we die. The real answers, Eliezer, you will find only within yourself. "And why do you pray, Moshe?" I asked him. I prayed to the God within me for the strength to ask him the real questions. We spoke that way almost every evening, remaining in the synagogue long after the faithful had gone, sitting in the semi-darkness where only a few half-burnt candles provided a flickering light. One evening, I told him how unhappy I was not to be able to find in sight a master to teach me the Zohar, the Kabbalistic works, the secrets of Jewish mysticism. He smiled indulgently. After a long silence, he said, "There are 1,001 gates allowing entry into the orchard of mystical truth. Every human being has his own gate. He must not err and wish to enter the orchard through a gate other than his own. That would present a danger, not only for the one entering, but also for those who are already inside." And Moshe the Beetle, the poorest of the poor of sight, spoke to me for hours on end about the Kabbalah's revelations and its mysteries. Thus began my initiation. Together we would read over and over again the same page of the Zohar, not to learn it by heart, but to discover with the very essence of divinity. And in the course of those evenings, I became convinced that Moshe the Beetle would help me enter eternity into the time when question and answer would become one. The second passage I will read comes from page 63 to 65. In the following pages, Eliezer has finally come to terms with the atrocities that are happening in the concentration camps. They are just acts against God and against his people. At such a young age, Eliezer has come to terms with the horrible acts that have been inflicted on him and others like him. I watched other hangings. I never saw a single victim weep. These withered bodies had long forgotten the bitter taste of tears, except one, the Oberkapo of the 52nd Cable Commando, was a Dutchman, a giant of a man, well over 6 feet. He had some 700 prisoners under his command, and they all loved him like a brother. Nobody had ever endured a blow or even an insult from him. In his service was a young boy, a pipo, as they were called. This one had a delicate and beautiful face, an incredible sight in this camp. In Buna, the pipo were hated. They often displayed greater cruelty than their elders. I once saw one of them, a boy of 13, beat his father for not making his bed properly. As the old man quietly wept, the boy was yelling, "If you don't stop crying instantly, I will no longer bring you bread. Understood?" But the Dutchman's little servant was beloved by all. His was the face of an angel in distress. One day the power failed at the central electric plant in Buna. The Gestapo, summoned to inspect the damage, concluded that it was sabotage. They found a trail. It led to the block of the Dutch Oberkapo, and after the search they found a significant quantity of weapons. The Oberkapo was arrested on the spot. He was tortured for weeks on end, and in vain. He gave no names. He was transferred to Auschwitz and never heard from again. But his young pupil remained behind in solitary confinement. He too was tortured, but he too remained silent. The SS then condemned him to death, him and 2 other inmates who had been found to possess arms. One day, as we returned from work, we saw 3 gallows, 3 black ravens, erected on the Appelplatz. Roll call. The SS surrounded us. Machine guns aimed at us. The usual ritual. 3 prisoners in chains, and among them the little pupil, the sad-eyed angel. The SS seemed more preoccupied, more worried than usual. To hang a child in front of thousands of onlookers was not a small matter. The head of the camp read the verdict. All eyes were on the child. He was pale, almost calm. He was biting his lips as he stood in the shadow of the gallows. This time, the Lagerkapo refused to act as executioner. 3 SS took his place. The 3 condemned prisoners together stepped onto the chairs. In unison, the nooses were placed around their necks. "Long live liberty," shouted the 2 men. But the boy was silent. "Where is merciful God? Where is he?" somebody behind me was asking. At the signal, the 3 chairs were tipped over. Total silence in the camp. On the horizon, the sun was setting. "Caps off!" screamed the Lagerrelatesti. His voice quivered. As for the rest of us, we were weeping. "Cover your heads!" Then came the march past the victims. The 2 men were no longer alive. Their tongues were hanging out, swollen and bluish. But the 3rd rope was still moving. The child, too light, was still breathing. And so he remained for more than half an hour, lingering between life and death, writhing before our eyes, and we were forced to look at him at close range. He was still alive when I passed him. His tongue was still red, his eyes not yet extinguished. Behind me, I heard the same man asking, "For God's sake, where is God?" And from within me I heard a voice answer, Where he is, this is where, hanging from this gallows." That night the soup tasted of corpses.